I'm Dr. Cheryl, and welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. The theme of our show is raising the awareness and consciousness in the relationship with wealth and applying unconditional love. Always remember that your present situation is not your final destination. The best is yet to come. Zig Ziglar. I'd like to start with a joke. A blonde and a brunette are driving down the highway in a convertible. The brunette knows that she's speeding, so she asks the blonde if there's a cop behind them. The blonde looks behind her and sees a cop and tells the brunette. The brunette then asks if he's got his lights on, and the blonde replies, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Our special guest this evening is Richard R.B. Botto. He's the founder and CEO of Stage 32, the world's largest social media site and educational hub for film, television, and theater creatives. R.B. is also represented as a screenwriter, producer, actor, and author. He served as an associate producer on Sam Levinson's debut, Another Happy Day, which starred Ellen Barkin, Demi Moore, Thomas Hayden Church, Kate Bosworth, and Ellen Burstyn, and premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, winning Best Screenplay. In 2014, Botto executive produced the award-winning short All Things Hidden, Botto's own latest script. The End Game is currently in development. A pioneer of the early stages of the internet boom, Botto developed Stage 32 so creatives across the globe would have a dedicated network to find work and representation, launch projects, secure funding, further their education, and make life and career-altering connections. In just over 3 years, Stage 32 has organically reached over 325,000 members from every country on the planet and has been described by Forbes as lynda.com meets LinkedIn meets Facebook for film, television, and theater creatives. Botto has spoken all over the world at industry conferences including American Film Market, South by Southwest, Screenwriters World West and East, Great American Pitch Fest, STN Convention, and many more. Prior to creating Stage 32, Botto was the founder, publisher, and editor of Razor magazine, a national men's lifestyle magazine, which boasted a readership of 1.5 million at its peak. A former radio host on ESPN and Fox Sports affiliates, Botto appeared on such networks as CNBC, MSNBC, NBC News, Fox News, CBS News, and VH1, riffing about the entertainment business and social media. In the 90s, Botto was an integral part of a team responsible for creating the vendor tracking system used by many of today's top e-commerce companies. Botto headed the development and design and commercial implementation for several of the top 50 most visited sites on the web during that period. Botto also serves on the advisory board of Old Town Music Hall, a classic film theater in El Segundo built in 1921. Botto's book on crowdsourcing will be published by Focal Press in 2015. This is the first segment of a two-part discussion with R.B. Welcome, R.B. Thank you for coming on my show. I'm just sorry you're not here live, but you're as live as can be. And welcome.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here. Wish I could be up there, but good to be doing this.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I was thinking the other day how I got to Stage 32. And I have a lot of networking buddies that are in San Francisco. Actually, I have a friend he lives in New York and he lives in San Francisco. And he sent me your website. So I joined immediately, and I've just been inundated with all your information. So,
Well, that means it's working the way it's supposed to, because the entire site has been crowdsourced, which means that we, ask all the people that have joined the site to invite 5 fellow creatives. That's been that way since the beginning, since we first started. And the fact that somebody sent you an invite means that the message is getting across. So that's great.
absolutely. So I've done an introduction of you, and you have quite a few wonderful accolades and honors. And but just tell us and my viewers, or our viewers, how you got started in this, and it's
It's kind of this. It was this convergence of things. I had an entertainment background, starting as an actor in New York, and then I had an entrepreneurial background, starting some businesses, some startups in the early days of the internet, e-commerce, back in the mid to late '90s at a very young age. So that set me up in a way to have this convergence of what Stage 32 is all about. And Stage 32 is this marriage, sort of, in a way, of the entrepreneurial spirit and everything I've been through as an actor and a screenwriter and a producer. And it's been a long journey to get to this point, I guess. But it's the perfect storm. It's this idea of bringing all creatives together and creating a social network that is more focused and niche-oriented than, let's say, Facebook or LinkedIn or the garden variety social networks out there.
So did you grow up in Manhattan? Is that where you're from?
I grew up in Brooklyn.
In
Brooklyn
Brooklyn.
and Staten Island.
So did you come from a family that were entrepreneurs or entertainers?
Not real. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Actually, yes. My father started his own business. My grandparents were, one white collar, one blue collar. But my father, was a pharmacist, and actually started a pharmaceutical advertising company. Learned a lot through him through the years, and just being around him and going to the company dinners and all that kind of thing. And but always just had a desire to do things on my own and not necessarily have to work for somebody else. Take my own ideas and
Yes.
kind of make something of it. And that's really, I learned that, or I wanted that at a young age. I discovered that I wanted that at a young age and pursued it very young.
Wow. You're making it happen.
Thank you.
So tell us who some of your role models are, in the entertainment industry. I know you have one in particular.
Well, you may have something that I don't know. Well, I mean, there's quite a few of them. I mean, as a writer, I always looked up to David Mamet in a lot of ways. A lot of the big ones, a lot of the big writers. Aaron Sorkin, even to this day, a lot of what he does, I think, is very, very good. There's some stuff he does that I'm not on board with, but on the acting side, it was very, very different for me. I didn't necessarily look up to too many people, and as so much as I respected the work and I respected the process. Learned a lot about acting, through watching, and admired a lot of the people that I actually worked with, more so than maybe people on the silver screen, so to speak, or people on stage, but respected the process and respected the work that they put in. So it's been different in every single way, in a lot of ways, depending on the discipline, depending on if I'm producing or if I'm acting or if I'm writing.
Right.
So it just depends sometimes. But I admire. I have to say that there are people that are working in this business that work consistently. It's a very difficult business to get consistent work, and those are the people that I like to look at their career path, not only from on the discipline side, but also on the business side, how they've stayed relevant, the choices they make.
So what's your driving passion?
With Stage 32, it's helping people. It comes from a very genuine place, an altruistic place in a lot of ways. One of the reasons I started the site was because I felt that there were too many people that I knew, especially, going all the way back to my acting days, people that were much more talented than me that didn't have the connections necessary to stay in the game. Couldn't keep hanging on. Had family support to support things of that nature.
Right.
But then also, I get to speak a lot around the world, which is, a great honor for me to be able to go do that. And it's amazing when you're sitting in front of, let's say, actors in the Midwest or screenwriters, in the UK, and they tell you that they have no place to go to learn. They have no support group. So the impetus of Stage 32 came from a lot of different places, but central to that was the idea of making the world a little bit smaller for people so that they have the connections that they need. But also, and very, very important to me, was bringing education to people who wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise, to be able to bring industry people online to teach classes and webinars and labs and things of that nature to people who otherwise wouldn't have access to such material, and to give them that support to keep them in the game.
Right, right. So at what juncture did you discover that, impetus for that?
Probably back in about 2009. There was a film market out here in Los Angeles called the American Film Market, and just speaking to people that were coming from all over the world looking to sell their projects or pitch their ideas, and not meeting with success, and speaking with them and asking them what they were going to do next, and hearing the answer inevitably being, we're going to try to come back and do it again, which I thought was terrible. You're sitting on these projects for another year, and you're trying to, it's almost like a lottery ticket kind of thing, which I thought was sad in a lot of ways, because again, these are people with a lot of talent and great ideas and everything like that. So I said, okay, well, how do we make the world a little bit smaller? So the idea of a social network came probably about 2009, and then it took me about 2 years to convince myself to actually go out and do it, because I didn't know if I wanted to take it on, because I knew it would be a gigantic undertaking, and it has been. I had to convince myself that I would be committed to the cause, and it took me about 2 years to do that. But once I jumped in with both feet and haven't looked back.
And it's only been 3 years.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 3rd-year anniversary.
I know.
And now 325,000 people from all over the world, every country in the world, we have at least one member. I mean, it's incredible. It's been an amazing ride.
Well, it's very exciting, actually, for the layperson that doesn't know how to get the contacts.
Yeah, and it's been great. I have to say, it's been great for the established people too, because again, you're always the people don't understand. I think people look at the entertainment business from the outside. They see somebody very successful, and they say, well, they can write their own ticket at any time. And it's very, very rare that that's the case. I mean, even if you look at somebody like Steven Spielberg, this is a guy that fought to make Lincoln for years. He had to go, to India to find the money, and it just didn't come to him. He had to go out and fight for it. And that's the truth with almost every single creative out there. So even for the established creatives, people that have been in the business for a while, you're still fighting for the next thing. Right, and for below the line talent, for example, people who work on the set, people who, the crew, it's even more so. It's a lot of people work on independent films, for example. This was another thing that kind of pushed me towards the decision of saying, okay, I really want to do this, was I worked on an independent film that went to Sundance in 2010, and we had a crew of about 30 people, casting crew of about 30, well, with the cast it was much more than that, but a crew of about 30. And, everybody becomes like family on a set. Yeah. And, when it was over, when we wrapped, it was, it's sad. You're going on your separate ways, and this was filming in Michigan, which made it even worse because everybody was really coming from all over. And then all of a sudden you start getting the calls, like 2 months later saying, hey man, have you heard of any gigs? Like, I'm desperate. I haven't worked since. And these are people that have been in the business for a long time. And you start to realize that they don't have, they're leaning on me, I'm leaning on them. And there's no other connective tissue to other people that we know. Right. And that's been amazing too, to see the established people getting more work than they've ever had before, and also continuing education, because I believe, and I firmly believe this, that education never stops. Every day is a chance to learn something new, and in this business, all the more so, because it changes. Man, it changes like on a dime. Yes, it constantly changes.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm learning that with being exposed to the networks and the entertainment company that are representing me. I mean, they're waiting for this is new to me, learning about how they are waiting for the ratings on the shows that for the fall to see which ones are going to fall to the side, and then the advertisers will come in and say, okay, we're going to put up some more money for some new shows. So that's what I'm waiting for.
It's amazing. There's a constant sea change right now in the film business. It's on the distribution front. With online distribution and with streaming and with straight to home video. Well, it used to be straight
Yes.
to home video, but now you have straight to streaming. You have
Right.
people, Weinstein's making deals with Netflix to go straight to streaming.
Right.
Adam Sandler making a 4-picture deal to go straight to streaming, passing the theaters.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing. So the educational aspect of this business, and when learning about this business, because it changes all the time, it's never ending, and nor
Right.
should it be in a lot of ways.
And keeping up with it is a good challenge.
It is a challenge. It's something that I preach very often. It's also part of your job. Like, it used to be if you were a creative, if you were a filmmaker or a screenwriter, you just came in and did your job and you just had to concentrate, let me write the best script possible and get it out there, and it'll find a home. Now you got to go out there and you got to be your own marketer. You got to be your own PR person.
Yeah.
You got to go out and network, and it's a job.
And not everyone has all those talents all in one.
No, and you got to figure out a way, but you got to figure out a way to do it, and
Yep.
it's one of the things I preach on Stage 32 all the time is that nothing good happens in the shadows. You know what I mean? If you're not posting and you're not being visible and you're not networking, nobody's going to see you,
Right.
and nobody's going to know the work you're doing, and nobody's going to know your dreams and desires. So, it's part of unfortunately for some people who are a little introverted, it might be a challenge, but it's part of the process. And if you master it, or if you at least do your best to conquer some of it, it's very, very rewarding in the end. So, it's just part of the nature of the business this day with so much business being done online.
Right,
And that's only
right.
going to increase.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think the cable is going to end up kind of disappearing.
It certainly could.
I mean, that's what I've been reading. But so, are you still doing any acting?
I haven't acted in quite a few years. Probably about 4 or 5 years, and I do miss it. And part of it has just been time. I've been concentrating a lot on screenwriting. We have one of my scripts is in development right now with a manager out here and a producer out here. So we're working. We have a director attached. That's taken up a lot of my time. Producing took up a lot of my time when I was producing the film that went to Sundance. So the acting has taken a little bit of a backseat, but I am slowly listening to offers and dipping my toe back in.
So is that the end game that you're working on? The one you're just...
That is the end game. That's the script. Yeah.
So can you give us a little bit of what it might be about?
Sure. It's a crime thriller. It's sort of a who's conning who kind of thing, sort of in the vein of The Usual Suspects. It's one of these stories where you're following the protagonist throughout and kind of learning as he's learning and peeling back the onion, so to speak, as you go along. And then by the end, it kind of all comes together and it's all revealed. So we attach the director to that. We are just about, hopefully this week that's going to happen, we're going to be going out to Leeds to attach leads to it, and then we'll see where we go from there. But it's moving along.
What does that mean, attach leads?
Well, we look to, one of the things in this business now is, you try to attach talent. Many of the studios don't necessarily want to just look at a script unless it's usually based on source material, which is usually a comic book. So what you try to do is you try to attract an A-list actor or actress to depending on the role, and maybe a couple of other complementary positions. In this case, we have a director attached, and then you bring it to the studios and as a package and go from there.
So do you have that studio connection?
Well, my manager certainly does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my manager has been in the business for about 30 years. He was one of the founders of Endeavor. And he's about as connected as they come. So hopefully we'll get that moving along.
Great. So another happy day. How was your experience with that?
How much time you have?
Well, we still have 30 minutes left.
Another happy day was a really interesting thing because it was an independent film. It was written and directed by Sam Levinson, Barry Levinson's son. Barry, of course, did Rain Man and Diner and movies of that ilk. And this was Barry's first film. He wrote it at 23. He directed it at 26. Got Ellen Barkin on board, and she kind of helped shepherd the whole project through. Ellen was the lead. Ellen was able to bring in Demi Moore and Thomas Hayden Church, Ellen Bernstein, Kate Bosworth, Erza Miller. Great cast, amazing cast. It was difficult, though. It was, like most independent films, you're piecing things together almost like a jigsaw puzzle. You got to
Right,
get this
right.
piece in place and that
Yep.
piece in place, and you got to figure it all out. So it had its challenges, and then we were able to finally get the thing off the ground started shooting in August of 2010 with the plan to submit for Sundance, which was January of 2011. So that meant shooting the whole film in a month and
Ooh.
editing it in
Oh my
pretty much
goodness.
3.5 months. And we pulled it off. And
Wow.
it went to Sundance. It won Best Screenplay at Sundance. And then, a lot of, it's one of the unfortunate things about this business. There was a lot of politics that went on as far as the distribution was concerned. It probably did not get the distribution it deserved. It's done very well on VOD and on streaming on Netflix, but it probably deserved a better theatrical run than it had. It had a little bit of a run, but it did not have the run that it probably should have had, and that was because of not because of the movie itself. It was more about the backdoor dealing with the distribution.
How do you get beyond that politics?
It's tough. I mean, when you don't have full control, if you have a certain, you could watch an independent film and see 19 executive producers and 20 co-producers, but you'll probably only see one or two actual producers. And those are the ones that are usually going to be negotiating the deal and putting it together. And if they're not acting in the best interest of the film, or if there's egos involved, which in this particular instance, a couple of the stars were involved in producing the film, so there was a little bit personal agendas that were attached to it, and it affected the overall outcome. I won't say who was right and who was wrong, but it affected the overall outcome. It wasn't for the good of the. It didn't end up being for the good of the picture.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but it happens in this business probably more often than it should because it's so difficult.
You sound like my agent, because he's always saying, yeah, the egos. It's always the egos that get in the way.
It's a lot of whose is bigger. You get a lot of that. We had an independent film. I talk about this a lot, but there was another script that I wrote called Rockets Red Glare that we had two producers involved, and we were getting the picture off the ground. And one producer was the money guy, and the other producer was the talent guy. And we were really far down the road with this thing. We had almost all the money in that we needed. We had feelers out to the stars that we wanted. Felt really good about that. And then it just became this battle of who was more important. It was this petty, silly thing, where it's, whose is bigger, and the whole thing fell apart.
Oh,
and basically everybody else that was involved with the film that had shepherded it to that point got screwed, ultimately. But it happens. I mean, it happens more often than you would think.
Right.
In fact, I always say that it's so amazing that any film gets made that it's almost impossible to me that bad films get made, because it's just so difficult to, but you have so many voices in there, and maybe that's why so many bad movies get made, because there are too many voices. But it's a challenging process. It's a minor miracle when one goes. When you're on that set and you're yelling, somebody's yelling action, the director's yelling action. It's almost like a minor miracle. And even then, you kind of feel like even when you're at that point, you kind of say, well, wait until I'm sitting in a theater and I'm actually seeing it on the screen. I'm not going to believe it's going to happen.
Right. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you have to muster up to stay positive no matter what.
If you listen, I talk about this all the time on Stage 32. If you're going to be in this business in any capacity, you have to have a thick skin, and you have to be able to accept no. And you have to take no as a learning experience, because that's difficult to do sometimes, because it's very easy to get down if you're hearing, if you're not getting the yes you're looking for. But no is part of the process, and you have to have thick skin about it. And if you do, you really do have half the battle won, because you're gonna keep pushing. And before we went on the air, we were talking about drive and desire, and we were talking about your drive and desire, and that's what it's all about. If you can accept no and have it be a learning moment for you in some capacity. Even if it's just to learn about yourself, your intestinal fortitude, so to speak, then you're doing okay. You'll do all right. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot of overnight people think that they look at somebody and say overnight success, and they don't realize that overnight success took 10 years. They just don't realize it.
Right. So where do you see yourself going with Stage 32?
You know, we have so many plans. You know, I used to joke that we wanted to be Home Depot for people working in film, television, and theater. Everything from, I used to say concept to completion, but now I look at it. You know, I used to joke about that. I don't think it's such a joke anymore. Now I look at it as concept to distribution and maybe even beyond. And I just think that right now it's a very, very exciting time. You know, 90%, if not 97% of the filmmaking that's being done out there is being done on an independent level outside the studio system. I think that's going to continue to happen. I think with more distribution channels and a lower barrier of entry,
Right.
you know, to film something. I mean, you can film something on your phone, and people are editing on their phone now and things of that nature.
Right. It's
That
amazing.
you know, it could go it could go anywhere as far as I think it's going to become more explosive for people working on the indie side. I think, and I talked to a friend of mine who's been in the business for about 25 years, and he said probably since about 1998, 99, it's never been a more exciting time. It's been the most exciting time to be back in the independent world, and I sort of agree with that. And in fact, I do agree with that. I don't sort of agree with that. I do agree with it, and I think that that's where I want to lead Stage 32 to have it be all-encompassing, so that, you know, a filmmaker or even, you know, an actor, it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, that's all part and parcel to making a film or having a theatrical play or whatever, that you need all these components, but that the person that wants to put all these components together has all the resources and needs they need to make that the most successful project it could possibly be. So get in the way. Don't be your own worst enemy. That's a good point. It's a good point.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it, and I'll be in touch soon.
All right. This was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks, RB.
All right.
I'll leave you with this. Self-discipline is a form of freedom. Freedom from laziness and lethargy. Freedom from the expectations and demands of others. Freedom from weakness and fear and doubt. H.A. Dorfman, American Mental Skills Coach. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. Never give up. First, be aware and conscious of your thoughts and catch yourself before they come out of your mouth, especially the negative thoughts into words. It takes being sedulous, persevering, and disciplined. Be grateful for whose you are and where you've come from and what you have, and be grateful for your freedom, and eat healthy. Good nutrition feeds your mind and your body temple. Don't forget to exercise. Feed your spirituality with meditation and prayer. Thank God. Love yourself unconditionally. Stop criticizing, stop judging, and allowing others to dominate the way you feel and think about yourself. Be compassionate and share your wealth and abundance with others. When fear knocks, let faith answer the door. Wealth is the ability to fully experience life, by Henry David Thoreau. Thank you, Marin TV, for facilitating our show, and especially to my crew, Brad, Eric, Jack, and Mary. Thank you, crew. Please support and become a member of Marin TV. Bye for now, until the next time.